Welcome to Face to Face. This is a show about change and what's next. It's a show that asks questions and peels back the layers of our average everyday experience and goes beyond scratching the surface. We interview people doing incredible things who are making a difference around the globe. Join me as we listen in and get one step closer to understanding that big ideas shared create collaboration. Collaboration can inspire community, and communities create social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face to Face. So my next interview is with a director by the name of Leena Yadav. I had a wonderful time speaking to her and three actors from the film. The film is Parched, which premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. She's a film director who wants to ask some pretty deep questions. And what I walked into the interview and I thought I was coming to speak with her, and here was this group of young women who starred in the film, created the film, wrote the film. We've got this group of passionate people who want to turn the world upside down, and it was exciting and it was fun and it was funny. You're going to love this interview, and you're going to learn a lot about not only about this film, but you're going to learn a lot about what's going on around the globe. I think Leena would agree that this film is not just about what's happening in her home country, but this is a film about issues that are happening everywhere. This is a global concern. And enjoy the interview. I know you're going to have some fun with it. And again, check out more of the interviews on rabble.ca, of course, and davidpecklive.com. So welcome to Face to Face. We are joined by four very special guests today. I came here today expecting to interview the director, Leena Yadav, of her new film Parched, and I'm met by three other lovely faces as well. So we've got lots to talk about today. This is to say it's an interesting film is an understatement. Congratulations, first of all, to all of you. So much. And would you mind just all introducing yourselves really quickly, and then let's go.
Yes. So I'm Leena Yadav, the director.
Hi, I'm Surveen Chawla.
Hi, I'm Tannishtha Chatterjee.
And I'm Radhika Apte.
So I think the word that comes to mind for me is compelling. I think I read a very quick review, and one of you is quoted as saying that every man should see this film. I'm not sure. Was that you? So I teach in international development, and a lot of women often are in my classes, often about 80%. And so very sensitive and aware of gender issues, work in the global south, see it all the time. Yeah. And this is a very stark, and you're the writer, Leena, is that correct? So writer-director, which also makes it very interesting from my perspective. So tell me about about a couple of the layers in the film. I mean, clearly this is about gender issues, but it's about so much more than that. We're talking about extreme poverty, we're talking about gender, we're talking about abuse and violence and all kinds of things, seems to me.
Yes. And we're talking at one level, there's no blame game in this film, to be honest. For me, the men are actually as much victims as the women are, because they've bought into this whole thing. A person like Manoj, that's Lajjo's husband in the film, is a victim. For him to have known that he's infertile and live the stereotype of this macho image outside, that's what has built up that violence that he takes out on her every night. Or a Gulab who's been brought up without a father figure, and he has this pressure, and he's being teased all the time that, you don't have a reference point for a man. Will you get to be a man? So there actually are too many layers that one is trying to tackle in the film, and to be honest, they are just observations of a lot of things that one just sees being passed off as without being questioned. So yeah, we've just packed it with a lot of stuff.
You certainly have packed it with a lot of stuff. Why aren't you an academic? Why didn't you write a book about this? Why did you make a film about this instead?
Because I'm a filmmaker. And interestingly, my father-in-law is a teacher of drama, and when he saw the film, he said, I don't know the life of films. This needs to be literature.
Interesting.
So yeah, I think everybody from their perspective thinks that that's the more powerful medium. For me, since I'm a filmmaker, I don't think there's any more medium more powerful than this. And if you can, I can't use the word entertain, but if you can take people on a story, take them into that story, and give them an experience, I think they come out with much more knowing than they have if they have to read something.
Well, and as actors and as a filmmaker, you must believe in the power of story to work on a variety of levels, right?
Absolutely.
It's a soul thing. It's a
yeah.
mind thing. It's academic, but it's also emotional. It's meeting us on so many different planes. It seems to me. I see the film and because I have a more of an academic edge, I suppose I say, wow, this needs to be a school course. I mean, we could create a whole course around this film. I could have my students write essays about this. What?
You must do that.
I do that, but
Yes,
with your film, you mean?
Parched.
Yeah,
You must do that.
That
yes.
would be
amazing.
well. Once it's a wide release, maybe I will be able to do
Yeah.
that. I actually was talking to my wife this year, just recently, about choosing 5 or 6 films and assigning one to my students. You get to pick, but you have to write an observational kind of essay about international development. Pick an issue in the film and then unpack it. This would definitely resonate with a lot of my students. Is this an anti-traditional movie? Are you guys attacking tradition, would you say, with this in a sense? Or is it, you said it's not a blame game, I get that. And by the way, jump in anytime.
Sure. I don't think we are anti-tradition at all. It's just conditioning of certain things. Let's just question everything. And a lot of time tradition has changed. It was made with much more validity for the reasons it was made, but over the years, it became something else. Like certain rules that when you question it and you start going into the history of them, you realize they were, kind of created for a reason. Like a simple thing, like in India, when women are having their periods, they are banned from going into temples. Okay, but that's not how it started. Or they're banned from going into the kitchen. One learns, I may be wrong in this, but what I have heard is that was because they wanted the woman to rest in that time, which she needs to do, her body needs to rest. So she was told, you sit in the room, we'll feed you. You don't have to go and do your duties for these days. But what did it become over time? Don't you dare step into the kitchen. Don't you can't go in front of God like this because you're impure. How can you be impure? It's just God is giving. I mean, if there is a God, then God has created this. How can that be impure?
Well, and on some level, isn't that the giving of life or what?
Exactly.
I mean, how could you not be pure, right? A pure point or a pure time in a woman's life. I there was a sense in which in the film for me, everyone was just so afraid of being embarrassed, right? This saving face with others and their neighbors and their friends, and we don't want them to really know what's going on underneath the surface. Is that kind of the culture? I mean, I think that's our culture too. It's Canadian culture. It's
world over.
I think it's universal. It just doesn't belong to India or the Indian culture at all. I think we're also afraid to question. We're afraid to question, and we're afraid to put our points across, and we're afraid to discuss issues. We're just afraid. It's just fear, primarily, fundamentally. And I think with the film, yes, Leena's been saying this. Of course, it is an observation, and we all believe this, that it is very, very important that this be talked about, and that's the only way to bring about change. To really leave the fear behind and begin to discuss and really talk about it.
I truly believe that if we start just talking about sex and discussing it, a lot of the pent-up frustrations which are causing so much of sexual violence will go. We need to talk about sex. Everybody has sex. It's normal. We eat food. We have sex. Why is there such a taboo?
That's the quote from the interview, by the way. Everybody has food. Everybody has sex. Yeah.
And
it's true. No, it's true.
I mean, what is the big hoo-ha about it? And we have all been asked, oh my God, it's such a bold film from India. Nudity, shh. What? Their bodies.
So I grew up in a pretty traditional Christian home and you don't talk about sex, you don't talk about religion, oddly, and you don't talk about politics. My father passed away recently. I still don't know how much money he made annually. That's insane, right?
Yeah.
Why didn't my family go a little deeper? So because of my background in philosophy, with my kids, 7 and 10, we got to have it all on the table, right? And we haven't come to a point yet where I've said, oh, gee, I don't want to talk about that yet. But I wonder, right? Because you say it all comes back to fear, and I wonder, what actually do you think we're afraid of?
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not sure what we're afraid of.
Yeah. Little one. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I don't know what we're afraid of. I think it's just conditioning, and it's just laziness. You know
what? Laziness. It's really great. So you're saying, Leena, to question everything, and I think you're kind of right in a way that we lose track of what matters just because it's easier.
Easier, exactly. Oh, I don't know how to tell my child about this, so I'll just say, don't ask me. I'm just giving an example. Yeah. So I think it's laziness and it's conditioning, and I think it's just turning your back towards it. That's all.
I think a lot. I don't know if this happens in Indian culture, and I don't know if it happens in other cultures. But the whole notion of when a child asks you something, well, because I said so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Absolutely.
Is that not like the craziest thing a parent could say?
Yeah.
No. There's so many children in India who were told that they were picked up from the temple. Their parents didn't have sex. And isn't that a conditioning? You can't imagine your parents that they've had sex and that's how you were born. Yeah. Why isn't it? It's just so simple. Yeah. But there's just this whole thing put around sex, this whole cloud around it.
No, it's to another level. I'll just share another story. It was my parents are doctors, and my mother used to teach in my school and give sex education. I was so embarrassed that I didn't know how to have sex for a long time because I just never paid attention because I was so embarrassed.
That your mother was talking
about
sex.
My mother was talking about sex and drawing organs on the blackboard. I used to just look down. It's ridiculous.
That's how deep-seated
it is ridiculous, and I think you guys are right in a sense. I read a review that said something about they thought that this was a little not too critical of Indian culture, but that there was a lot more progressive thinking going on in India. And well, it's a big place, but I mean, when you look at what's happening in Canadian and Western culture,
that
we're not really, to say we're far behind is almost condescending in a way. Do you know what I mean?
and I've been faced with that question all the time, and sometimes I address it, sometimes I don't, because it gets people's back up. They're like, oh my God, it's so timely, this film, with all the rapes that are happening in India. Oh. And I tell them, do you know the amount of domestic violence in America?
Yeah.
So it's just that turning your back to it, like, oh, it's not happening in my neighborhood. Like, a lot of people even in India will say, oh, it's not happening in the cities. This is in the village, We are educated people. We don't do this shit. So we are doing it in shut doors.
Yeah, actually, I had once attended a workshop where there was data and there were like about 55, 56 women sitting and discussing abuse or, child abuse or anything, any of those kind of experiences that they've gone through. And this is like in a big city with upper middle class people, and it's not strange, but the reality was that more than 70% of the girls, this was when I was in college, actually went through some kind of abuse in their childhood. And the reality is that in villages we in India think that the lower you go in your income strata, the violence is more and it gets less reported. It's actually the reverse. The higher you go in the income strata, the reports are less. And the violence, we don't know whether it's more or less, but the reports are less, the reporting. So if you go to extremely rich families, you will never know the kind of violence that's happening. In the middle class, again, we have so much of fear and shame of accepting that, this is what happened to me. And so there is no reporting, there's no sharing. If I wouldn't tell her that this has actually happened in my life, I'll say, oh no, it's all very nice, So the thing is that, that's true in all, I think that's true culturally as well. And I completely agree with Leena when she's saying that, when we made this film, people said, oh, it happens in the villages and not in the city. But actually reporting in the cities is even less. Because certain times in villages and all, they are outrageously open about certain things. People would...
Yeah, because it's down to basics. Survival,
yeah.
No? Yeah, he beats me up.
Yeah.
Village, the woman will say, Yeah, it beats me up. In a city, what are those bruises? Oh my God, I fell down here last night. Whom are you trying to protect and save here? Then there are choices that you're making, you know.
So I need to ask you all about that. So the whole idea of choice. So my background philosophy, freedom, choice, responsibility. That's it for me, right? So, you know, I asked you about the anti-traditional edge to the film, and you sort of said no, that it's not. But do you think that at some point the choice was clearly motivated by power? It's just men have this culture, the government, you know, you could look at this film as a political metaphor even, right? From the patriarchal kind of structures and what's happening in society as a whole, globally, what's going on with violence and invasions and so on. So I guess, I guess for me, your film is really profoundly human in a sense. Like there's so much humanity coming out in the film. And so, yeah, choice. Where does the choice come into this? You know, well, it's just the way our culture is. Right? Well, so therefore, right? Better not ask any questions because that's the way it's always been.
Yeah.
How do you break from that? You say, always ask questions. Question everything. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah.
How do we get everybody else on board?
Oh man. But I think at some level, you know, people do. They do question. I mean, you wouldn't live these lives unquestioningly. I don't know what holds them back. Maybe they question it internally. The discussion is not coming out. It needs to come externally. We need to, if necessary, argue this out, fight it out, you know. Just get it out there. Have that opinion out there. Don't just keep that inside. Get it out there. Argue, disagree. Like I just said that there may be people who disagree with my film or something that I've shown. It's not a film that I've made which I want that people just love it.
Right.
I want them to be moved by it, shaken by it, hate it, love it, react. Just do something to react. Yeah.
Discuss, disagree, have a dialogue. But I mean, I would add to what Leena was saying and your question that how do you start and what Leena said, that I think people do react. They raise questions. You know, the women, the stories that we are telling about the women, and in our research when we were traveling, we had never thought that in a small village, these women are actually questioning these traditions.
I bet they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we never thought that they were questioning. We thought, oh, they would be subjugated. In the cities, we have more opportunities and we are liberated. But to our surprise, when we went, the stories have come out in the way that they have. They're all inspired by these real women. They are questioning it, which is why...
The problem is the lack of information for them.
Yeah.
Honestly, they don't have the information. There are witch doctors in the villages where we went.
Traditional
They
medicine.
don't know. And they're being told because the women don't move out of that village. The men are the ones who are going to the cities. And they're coming back saying, oh, right, these women, they shouldn't come to know there are other choices there. Like, we were refused permission to shoot in about 30 villages there. Because when I went there, so we obviously had to tell them that, listen, we'll be a crew of 70 or 100 and da-da-da. And they would like look at me and say, are you trying to tell us there will be more women like you that will come here? I said, a lot more women like me.
That's
like,
hilarious.
and they, to my face, said that will...
Yeah, totally.
No, and
Yeah,
they said
yeah.
that
Leadership.
that'll corrupt our women.
Right.
They said it to my face.
And they use the word corrupt.
This is the younger generation. This is not the older generation. This is the younger generation which has had much more education, which has had much more exposure. They're the ones who've gone into the cities.
So I saw a film, P.S. Jerusalem, this festival, and I interviewed Leena Yadav. She's a Jewish filmmaker, and there are young people, the racist things that are coming out of these young people's mouths in Jerusalem to her, to the camera, as she's trying to shoot, and they're calling her just horrible names. And you say, hang on, we are in the 21st century, aren't we still? You know, what's going on?
Yeah. No, I also feel that there's a difference between education and awareness.
Yeah, it's good.
Like we were talking about village there, but in cities, people are educated, but they are still not aware of the fact that they have a choice to begin with, and they don't have to stick to the conventional answers that are given to them. And I also feel the major problem is about having an image. It's all about your image building. isn't it? To have an
Do you mean
image.
like from a sort of a popular culture perspective? What are people going to think of
people
Yeah,
me?
say,
what are
Right.
people going to think about? Which her character is mostly obsessed with. That what
Right.
are people going to think about us? And I think from awareness point of view again, when I'm talking about film culture, I mean, if we go to that at all, I think it's like opium. You know, when films, a majority of films are giving us sort of a message which supports all these things, which does exist. It's like a thing. It sort of sedates you. It sedates the society. It's extremely dangerous, but it sedates the society. And because we live in a capitalist world, I mean, I'm just saying that.
For the most part, yeah. Without a doubt.
we do. The whole PR of it, the whole economics of it, works around it. So we have 95% of the films which are sedating the society to a level that you think that is contemporary, or don't forget contemporary, that is how it should be.
No.
Whereas that's very dangerous because that's sedating you. You know,
Totally know what you mean. Yeah.
And I
It's
think
kind of
that's-
like lifestyle advertising, and how does that impact
Yeah.
you? What are the implications of that? Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's more dangerous. And not just from a city point of view. Now that you have mobile phones and television reaching every part of village, that's, I think, the most dangerous thing, rather than just the direct violence. That is there. It's obvious. It's obvious. You can see that, oh my God, this man hits me, it hurts. But you don't understand that I watch this daily soap every evening. And that actually takes me somewhere else slowly. And I think that is extremely crucial.
Yeah, so the thing is, this whole thing about what Radhika said about, the daily soaps, for example. I have seen families where the relationship between themselves is not as emotional as their relationship with the characters of the TV. So
Right,
suppose
right.
something,
Yep.
the father-in-law in the TV is going through a coma and they're like so affected, but at their home there's somebody who's in coma. It's like boring to take care of that person for 20
Don't
years.
bother me
Like,
with
no,
details.
know. So that the escape into and the seduction of material and capitalism and all that it's all very smooshed and related, and that's what like popular culture does, right? Popular culture says that okay, now these are images that you see and these are popular images, and in many ways you're saying that oh, now when you dress up in a particular way and you're able to express your sexuality and do whatever you like, and that means women are more liberated. But what I see is there's more and more and more pressure on men and women in terms of an image, that how do you have to look.
Well, you have to behave a
Yes,
certain
behave,
way. You're
look,
not allowed to
everything.
question,
Yeah.
right? And this maybe is where the question when I asked you about the whole traditional sense of things, this is just the way it is, so therefore, right? Which is like you said, so dangerous.
And also, I think to add to that is that, funnily enough, because we're talking about media, we're talking about our field and the whole industry. So suddenly, these issues, a film like this, or many films, like some of the film comes out, and suddenly people want to talk about it, and then talking about it becomes cool.
Yeah.
And then everybody wants to be a part of it, and the subject just gets diverted into something else. And
So you all should have been academics. This is what goes on in the classroom. This is awesome.
But it just becomes about something else. The actual fundamental issue is lost.
Yeah.
And it's all a game. It's all a PR activity.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunately you have to showcase your film, and it's such a big part of that.
Sure,
So I think it's
sure.
a very crucial balance to sort of.
Well, it's kind of an irony of a film festival in a way, right? Because it's supposed to be about story. It's supposed to be about the issues and going deeper, and yet so much of it is all just a surface text, right? Can't get beyond scratching the surface, right? It's all about the parties, and it's about schmoozing and shaking hands and looking good and so on.
It's also the kind of stories, like Radhika said, that even in festivals and issues, and it becomes like there is a formula there as well. Like there's a commercial formula, and then there's an art house formula
Sure,
that
sure.
if you talk about this issue in this particular way, then it's going to work in that. So it boils down to capitalism again, like that you're putting a price and a capital to everything, whereas the curiosity of the human mind as artists, I think I find it quite like, very, very claustrophobic sometimes. And I have a lot of friends who are scientists who also say the same thing, that their creativity is so curtailed by that price factor, that you get money for this kind of research. If you want to do that research, there's no money for that. So if you want to make this kind of a film in an art house way, you have to make that subject in this way. And if it's commercial, you have to make it in that way. So that putting a price on everything is actually in many ways really curtailing our creativity. I mean, it's across the board. Like, I think many years back when the human mind invented certain things, it was just the curiosity. Oh, how is this happening? I just want to know, the wonder. And now it's like, okay, if I do this, how much money would I make?
Right.
Or what is how much appreciation would I get? That's also capital. All that is capital. Like whether you want to be rich or famous, both are capital.
So, Leena, where did you find such smart actors? That's what I want to know.
There are lots and lots of smart actors, and I got the best of the lot.
Apparently, you did. I want to invite you all to my class and come and give a lecture on the critique of capitalism in the global north. So this is not just about our sexuality, this film. This, as we talked about earlier, sort of to come full circle, it's really layered. There's a lot going on. It's not just about Indian culture. This is about the human race, it seems to me, at the risk of sounding kind of corny and idealistic. It really is. I mean, these are global issues. What are we at? About 190 countries around the world. I think we could go to pretty much every one and find similar issues.
Like I was saying, when they say it's about India, oh, is this what happens in your villages?
Right. Oh, horrible.
I actually
India,
want to
right?
tell them
Isn't
that.
it awful if you live in India?
I said they don't have exposure, they don't have education, they don't have information. What's your excuse? Right here in New York.
Nice comeback. That could be a T-shirt. That's your excuse.
I can tell you a million reasons why those traditions or norms or whatever we call it are continuing without being questioned for them. What's your excuse?
It's kind of what drove me to, I think what drives me to love film is it's kind of, as a philosopher, it works on that level for me. I don't know that I see any kind of a film and not come out of it with a new question of one kind or another. And I think it's taken a while to get there, because I'm trying to bring up, Elizabeth and I are trying to bring up our kids in the same way, because I think you're right. It's all a diversion. So much of this is all just a big diversion away from what really matters, it seems to me. That's what I so love about films like this. We probably have to wrap it up soon, I would think. But is this about old and new? Is Parched about the old versus the new? In some, and I guess that kind of connects to the whole traditional kind of question as well. Old ways of knowing and being versus new ways of knowing and being. Does that make sense?
I think old and new keeps changing after because if we study the past, at some point we see, oh my God, that was so much more. We always say that we are regressing in time, that word. So the thing is that there are always waves of progress and openness, and then we get into dark ages, and then we come back again. So we don't know, like everything has always been there. And it just, when certain things become very, very repressed, there is a revolution and there's a change, and then again something else takes over as that becomes the norm, and then you have to revolutionize that as well.
Actually, a friend of mine reacted after she watched the film, and she went into deep thought for a couple of days, and she called me and she said, you know what, it's not just universal. I think your film is eternal.
Yeah.
And that's scary and sad. Very, very sad.
It's also sad because, at the end, you feel that, oh, finally these three women escaped and they are so happy that they think that they can support themselves. I think it's very sad.
Yeah, you know what? It's a question I did want to ask you about that it looks like a happy ending, but it's actually
not.
really
It's a terrible ending.
It's a terrible ending.
Yeah,
it's awful.
they had to leave.
They had to run away.
Yeah.
You couldn't stay, couldn't challenge it, couldn't actually get the conversation going in a
They're
sense.
going with hope, but if
we
you
don't
really
know,
think of what
yeah.
happens after that, where do they go? To
Where
another
they-
village?
yeah.
A city?
Yeah.
Is it different in that city?
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today. We're here talking with Leena Yadav and three academics about global issues. Thank you so much for joining me today. The film is Parched and world premiere.
Yes.
World premiere, and congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.